In this video, I'm going to look at one of the functions in our Dodgit game called animate. So here's animate, and here's where it's defined. So we're telling Python what to do when someone calls animate. In other words, tells it to come up here and do these commands. Down here, in the original program, we told it to come up and do it once. And the reason for doing that was so that it would then go through all these commands and get to this one here, which says, for our game page, after 100 milliseconds, come back to animate. That's making it come back here again. The next time it comes through, it'll get down to this bottom one again, and after another 100 milliseconds, come back again. So this line here is, because it's part of the function animate, is making our program come back to this animate function and repeat it. And it's going to do it every 100 milliseconds, if it can, because computers can be quite busy at times and slow, or slower than usual. Let's have a look at what's in animate. First of all, we've got this thing called global. Global just means the variables that we wrote up the top are going to be used in this function. So I move X, I move Y, and I moves left. We defined at the top of the program. If we don't write global here, it won't use them properly, and the program will not function as we want it to. The next thing we're doing is we're looking to see if the time's over, because in our game we were using I moves left to be the timer. So this line is saying if I moves left is less than or equal to 0, return. The effect of that is to stop the program doing any animating. So all this part in here will be missed out, nothing will happen. It would look like it's stopped, even though the program will still be doing things, it just won't show anything on the screen. Because a return means forget the rest of these commands, don't do them. Now the other thing that will happen, of course, is it'll never get to this line here again, which says come back to animate. So it's impossible for it to come back here after we've got it to return, unless we told it to come back here with another line saying animate, but we haven't done that. The next part here, this section here, was to make the X and the plus swap over in the player, so the player looks animated. So let's just have a look at that. Here's F5, we're running the program. Just move that over here and that out of the way, and you can see that this cross and plus are swapping over, and they're swapping over because of these lines of code. This one is saying if the canvas item sPlayer, which is the object here, if it's this object, if its text is a cross, which it is sometimes, if it's a cross, and if that's true, because double equals means is it true, so if the text that's here is a capital X, make it into a plus. Now with else, that's what you do if it's not true. So if it's true, it'll do this. If it's not true, it'll do that. So each time the program comes through here, this will be either a plus or a cross. This sPlayer will be a plus or a cross. And if it's a cross, it'll be changed to a plus. If it's a plus, it'll be changed to a cross. Now you can also see, because I've left the game running, what happens when the moves are left, when the moves are over. See, we said I moves when it's less than 0. Stop here, don't keep going. Jump out of this function, return to where you came from. And you can see that nothing's happened because all this animation now is not happening. So I'll just close that again for now. Let's look at the next bit. CMove means canvas move the player. The player is a text that's on the screen. It's either a cross or a plus at the moment, and it's going to move by these amounts. In the rest of the program, we change these based on what you press with the arrow keys. So these things could be a -10, a 0, or a +10. If this is -10, the player will move to the left. If this is +10, the player will move down. So this is going to move the player. So let's just see that in action. Sorry, try that again. So if I press the arrow keys, if I press the left arrow key, you can see the player moving, and it's moving because of that line of code. That line of code is making this cross plus, which is the player, S player, it's making that move around. Now you notice that it stopped when it got to the edge, and that's because we've got this bit of code here. That's to stop us running off the screen. So to do that, we need to find out the coordinates of the player, and I'm storing them in a variable called coords, which has two positions, a 0 and a 1. Coords 0 is where X is stored, the X position, and coords 1 is where the Y is stored. If I'm moving around on the screen, then I've got two directions I can move, X, Y, or X direction, left and right, or up and down. So what we need to do is make sure that in the X direction, we don't go past this edge of the screen, which is what these two lines are doing. And this line here is making sure we don't go past the right edge of the screen. And these two are for the top and the bottom. So these lines of code here, all of this section here, is just to make sure we don't run off the screen. Find out where the player is, store the X and Y position, check to see if it's too small, too big, too small, too big. If it is, make the movement 0. So the next time the program comes through here, these two values will be, or the one that wasn't 0 will be 0. And that'll stop, then the player will move a 0 amount, which means don't move. After that, we've got some other calls to some of our other functions. Move bomb means jump back up to where we told it how to move bomb and do whatever that says. Check hit says jump back up to see whatever it says check hit. Check time, jump back up and do whatever check time says. And then again, this one says come back to animate in 100 milliseconds. So rather than writing everything in here, we've done separate functions for these three things to make animate not so big and not so cumbersome. In the next video, we'll be looking at some of the other functions that we've done.